If you only watch one video about Israel, Palestine, and the Jews, it should be this. The Iron Dome is the world's greatest missile defense system. It keeps destruction, violence, and hate, paid for by the international community, thanks for that, out of Israel, keeping the people inside of it safe. The dissemination of anti-Jew ideas functions very much the same way. We are under a relentless barrage of anti-Jew, anti-Israel messaging all day, every day, from all around us. But unlike Hamas rockets, this weaponry is invisible, and we don't get an alert on our phones to warn us when it's coming. Even one of these mental missiles getting through can cause extreme damage. In order to stop them, we need to break their cloaking abilities, build up your own internal warning system, and safeguard your mind where truth and clarity reside. Today, I'm here to help you build your own mental Iron Dome, to provide you with the 3 essential, unassailable, missile-proof ideas that comprise the foundation upon which your impenetrable fortress of moral clarity is to be built. As Western liberal societies, we naively, arrogantly, ignorantly, continue to believe that the entire world, even the universe, operates on our same fixed set of moral values, that everyone plays by the same rules we do. Well, guess what, hotshot? They don't. That's not reality. We have enemies. As Westerners, as Americans, as Jews, as people who value free and equal societies. And our enemies, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, supported by proxy militias and other opportunistic states like Turkey and Qatar, are united in destabilizing Western power, liberal norms, and Israeli sovereignty. This is not a conspiracy theory. Qatar invests billions of dollars in American education. Russia interferes in our presidential elections. China uses TikTok to sow discord. This is common knowledge. Like it or not, we are living in an age of mass manipulation. Our institutions, media, education, and culture are being subverted through the deliberate use of emotional triggers, identity framing, narrative control, and incentive structures to steer our perceptions and actions while preserving the illusion of independent judgment. We are living in the Matrix. Our minds hooked into an illusory world we think we have freely chosen, but is in fact the creation of our enemies, who, in reality, are harvesting our bodies for energy. Okay, not that last part, but you get the idea. To protect ourselves from mass manipulation, we need to recognize and deconstruct it. And for that, we turn to former KGB propaganda specialist Yuri Bezmenov. I could do a whole video on Bezmenov's 4 stages of mass manipulation, but for our purposes, I'm going to focus on just the first one, demoralization, whereby a society's ability to recognize truth, defend itself, or believe in its own institutions is eroded by nefarious actors. And the hidden engine of demoralization is repetition. Simply put, what is repeated becomes familiar, what is familiar becomes credible, and what becomes credible no longer needs to be defended. Repetition doesn't require proof, only presence and the slow wearing down of any potential resistance. Repetition works as a result of what cognitive psychologists call the illusory truth effect. Repeated statements feel more true, even if they are known to be false. This is one of the strongest, most replicated findings in behavioral science. It works on experts. It works on people who have been lied to before. It works without argument. Repetition also leads to narrative entrenchment. Once a narrative has been embraced, to challenge it feels disruptive, annoying, or easily dismissed as partisan. This is why propaganda thrives on slogans, binaries, memes, buzzwords. The aim is not nuance or depth or truth, just stuff that's easy to repeat. And finally, repetition leads to pluralistic ignorance. When an idea appears ubiquitous, we assume everyone else believes it, so silence is interpreted as agreement, and public dissent feels risky and lonely. So even if many people privately know something isn't true, they don't speak up about it because they think they're alone, and the pervasiveness of the lie feels inevitable. We're going to get into the specifics of repetition as it pertains to the Israeli-Palestine conflict a little later, but now that we've named what we're up against, we're ready to start building our mental Iron Dome. The first pillar we have to lock in is the understanding, without a shred of doubt, that if the Arabs wanted a Palestinian state more than they wanted to destroy the Jewish one, there would be a Palestinian state. Period. This simple notion is what the entire Israeli-Arab conflict is about. And not because I said so, but because the Palestinians have said so, literally and openly for decades, supported by every action they have taken for the past 100 years. Again, I could make an entire video just about this history, but I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. So let's just look at the very first partition plan the Arabs were offered in 1936 under the Peel Commission, Britain's initial attempt to deal with the mandate they had over the territory known as Palestine. The British plan offered Jews, who were already in the land through both continuous presence and legal land purchase, about 18% of the territory, with all of the rest going to the Arabs, minus a British-controlled corridor through Jerusalem and Bethlehem. Of course, the Jews said yes, and the Arabs said no. No Jewish sovereignty, no Jewish immigration, and they in fact violently revolted against the British for the next several years, leading the Brits to close down immigration with catastrophic results for European Jews attempting to flee the Holocaust. Moreover, nearly every time peace has seemingly been on the table, the Palestinian response has been to initiate violence against the Jews. The War of Independence, the Second Intifada, the disengagement from Gaza, etc. Ask yourself, are these the actions of people who just want a state if only they'd be granted one, or the actions of people who want to eradicate Jews first, state later? Israel was created the same way nearly every other country on earth was created, by a nationalist, religious, or ethnic group, in the Jews' case both, building the foundations of statehood in the geographic location they're connected to, and then having their new state recognized by other nations around the world. Somaliland, which has been much in the news lately, has done the former but lacks the latter, which is why it's not a state. This is how the world works. Israel is a country, not an experiment, not an ideology, not a project. A country, like all the others, and it is not getting reversed any more than any other country on earth is. The existence of Israel is not the reason there's no Palestinian state. Lack of financial or public support is not the reason there's no Palestinian state. The occupation in the area known as the West Bank is not the reason there's no Palestinian state. Bibi Netanyahu is not the reason there's no Palestinian state. And the only reason you consider any of these as legitimate explanations is because you've been distracted into doing so by mass manipulation. You have been conned into embracing repetition as reasoning. We can debate these things until we're blue in the face, but in terms of solving the actual conflict, engaging with anything but the core idea is like shuffling chairs on the deck of the Titanic. And the iceberg, to use the term coined by next week's Being Jewish guest, Dr. Einat Wilf, is Palestinianism. And until Palestinian society is either convinced or strong-armed into accepting the presence of Jews in some part of the land to which we are indigenous, there will be no two states. Ideas like from the river to the sea, or one state for two people, or right of return, support for UNRWA, the generational inheritance of refugee status, communities in Gaza itself being called refugee camps, the narrative of the Nakba, these are the lifelines of Palestinianism, and our focus has to be on destroying these ideas, not just for the safety and security of the Jewish people, but for the Palestinians as well, who will never live in a state of their own as long as the Western world keeps their leaders doped up on billions in welfare and long-held dreams of Jewish extinction on life support. Also, and this is an unconscious behavior I see a lot from folks on the left, you do not need to say you hate Israel's government or Bibi Netanyahu in order to buy yourself the ability to say you support Israel. Hate Bibi if you want to, I don't care. But I bet a lot of you haven't even critically examined if your feelings are the result of well-researched and hard-won conclusions or because you've simply submitted to repetition. Let me remind you, it has never mattered what Israeli government is in power, right, left, center. The Palestinians said no to all of them. There are, of course, a few very brave, moderate Palestinians speaking with great clarity on this subject, like Ahmed Fouad al-Khatib, John Aziz, or Mossab Hassan Youssef. But what do they all have in common? They live in the West, where they can safely espouse these ideas that are in no way embraced or considered by actual Palestinian leadership. And any supposed moderation on the part of the Palestinian Authority is pragmatic rather than principled. Real, where regime survival and international legitimacy are at stake, but undermined by internal incentives that reward violence and discourage genuine reconciliation. So there we have it. Mental Iron Dome pillar number 1. when the Palestinians, as a collective and through their leadership, decide they want a state more than they want Jews to not have one, the conflict will end. Everything else is noise. This concludes part 1 of my 3-part series, The Only 3 Things You Need to Know About Israel, Palestine, and the Jews. To learn about the next pillar of our mental Iron Dome, subscribe to this channel and check back here next week. If you like this video, please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and share it with anyone else you think might like it too. And if you haven't already, look up Being Jewish with Jonah Platt on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe there too for even more in-depth analysis, or join my subscriber-only community for bonus content and one-on-one engagement with me at beingjewishpodcast.com/community. Thanks for watching.